Hello, I'm Roy Richardson, and this is the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Welcome to this week's edition of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Roy Richardson. The Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast is sponsored by Aurora Infotech, a cybersecurity firm catering to the information security needs of small to medium-sized businesses. Folks, this week, I have the honor of sharing time with someone who's known for her natural leadership ability, team building skills, and commitment to blue sky thinking, where ideas can be shared collaboratively without fear of being judged. She successfully ran 2 New York City advertising agencies and turned around a third before launching Rogan Marketing and Communications in 2010. Her volunteer efforts include encouraging the growth of women, small business owners, and young adults who display entrepreneurial learnings while continuously educating herself to best foster diversity to stimulate growth, education, and employment. She currently serves and has for the past 10 years on the governing board for Athena PowerLink, an organization that helps propel women-owned second-stage businesses. She's also served as president of the National Association of Women Orlando, and she's one of the founders of the successful business plan competition, where 2 winners received $20,000 in cash and prizes. The model she created for that was shared with SCORE Orlando to launch their business. Serving on the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce board is also one of her many duties. And in 2019, she was awarded by i4 Business Magazine as the 2019 Women's Inspired Leadership Award for Spirit of Mentorship. And as if that's not enough, she's also a UCF Business Incubator graduate. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Pamela Rogan of Rogan Marketing and Communications to our podcast. Pamela, welcome.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy talking to you.
Thank you. Same here. And it's so great to have you here with us today, Pamela. And I'm really looking forward to sharing your journey with our audience. So Pamela, tell me, how does one find the time and the day to do all the things that you're doing and contributing so positively to our community here in Central Florida?
So it took a long time. I've been doing this since blah, 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 blah. I won't say when, an entrepreneur, but it took, I've made a lot of, I don't call them mistakes because mistakes are what you learn. If you don't learn from them, then they are mistakes. Right. But I tried to cram everything in and basically trying to run my business. I've had a couple of businesses, and then trying to fulfill my passion for volunteering in the community. That sometimes it got to a point where that outweighed some, running the business. So, life lessons were I needed to cut back on some of it, but not have to give it all up completely. And then just being very organized, which I am. But making a task list every single day is something that really keeps me on track, because I'm competitive with myself. So I like to make sure that I accomplish everything that I have on the list.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about Rogan Marketing and Communications, what you guys do and what makes you uniquely, from others that are out there in the same field.
So our Rogan Marketing and Communications, our primary model is we act as the marketing department for our clients. So anything that a marketing department would do, we can do. I started that model because there are a lot of companies that can't afford someone in-house or a full team, or they could outsource, and they were outsourcing to multiple companies and then trying to find the time to manage all those multiple companies. Wow. And then on top of it, you lack that consistency. So if you had a public relations agency, a graphic design agency, website development, many companies work well with each other, but sometimes things would fall through the cracks, or services would overlap. So we take all of that and do it in-house, and you save a lot of money because you don't have to pay salary, benefits, bonus, overhead. Everything's done in-house, and we work with your budget and then design the services around that. So we really, some of our clients, they want us to do everything, but a lot of them, they'll start out small, and then we perform. They see how well we perform for them, and then we slowly add on other things. And a lot of times It's because we generated revenue from one of the services that we
Right.
provided, because that's always the goal, is to be able to, help them increase revenue and become better known in the market that they serve.
That's impressive, and I picked up on a rather uniquely nugget there that you mentioned. There were several of them, but one of them that stood out to me is that you don't really go into a business with a cookie cutter and said, "Hey, you need to fit into this mold." You actually mold your services around the business's needs, your clients' needs, and more importantly, their budget.
Correct. And we insist on strategy first, because we do have people that, businesses that will come to us and they have a general idea of what they want. And they want their, for instance, their website to look really pretty or professional. But we take them, a step back, because we want to make sure it's also functional, and that whoever visits the site is going to follow the path that they want them to get to, potentially a sale, or at least more brand awareness. So we put them through what we call a discovery process, where we learn, more about their business. And I've touched on so many different industries that I'm usually already aware of the inner workings of their industry. But this process, a lot of times, will bring up things that they didn't even realize, as far as like their competitive advantage, or things that, their offerings. Or you'll have a client that's really good at making their, developing their service or their product, but they're not even their own end user. So as an example, there was a man that had in New York had a shoe store, but he didn't really understand the women's audience. So when they went into the store, we helped him with a lot of just the internal branding, because he was branding it for, his taste, but not his target audience. So that's really important.
And I think we see that a lot in businesses nowadays, that, there's one, let's say one branding image or messaging being portrayed, but then there's not continuity or flow
Right.
between from that message onto anything else, any other piece of collateral that the business, or collateral or messaging that the business actually works on. So you kind of tie that all together and synchronize it, and give more of a unified look and feel.
Yes. So everything you see, whether it's their social media platform, their website, direct mail pieces. We had an office supply company in Atlanta, and some of their marketing pieces were okay, but none of them looked the same. So they did a really cool campaign. The preface of the campaign was really good. The wording is simple. They were trying to be a little cute, but it drew some attention, but nobody remembered them, because every single piece looked completely different. So we went in and, kind of like you said, synchronized all of their pieces, so that everywhere you look, you knew what company it was. And that helped them to actually grow in the market. They were already pretty big, but they just didn't have that brand awareness. And so by doing that, and it makes it easier too. So if you have, what we call our brand style guide, you have that written out, like what your fonts and your colors and, your logo and how the logo should be used. You don't have to constantly reinvent the wheel, because you know that certain elements will always be on some of these pieces. And then you can be creative, but still keep it in the guise of, consistency and the brand of the company.
Which is important, because particularly my background, by the way, happens to be advertising, but my
Cool.
undergrad was in advertising. But it's very important, and especially what you're mentioning there. I always tell people, when it comes to branding, if you think of Coca-Cola, that red can with a white wave on it. If
Mhm.
Coca-Cola was to remove all their lettering and you just saw that red can, or you saw a red billboard with a white wave, and that was the only thing that was on it, you would know it's Coca-Cola,
Yes.
because they've built that image, and through many different impressions and
Right.
et cetera, that they have put us through, we know exactly who that is. And a lot of times what I see out there is a company shifting logos and coming up with different iterations, and like
Mhm.
you said, inconsistency in fonts or colors or even look and feel. And it's hard to, if you think of the amount of effort that Coca-Cola put into that to get
Right.
us where we're at. It's we don't as small businesses have the same pockets, but
Right.
we can accomplish that if we maintain that consistency, and like you said, if we have a branding guide and we stick to it.
Right. Because you can evolve your brand, but completely go away from your brand unless it's a negative brand or something that you realized that it just was a mistake to be doing it how you're doing it. But we've evolved, company logos, but people still know it's them. And a lot of time it's just to make it more, contemporary or something, more with the times.
Got you. Got you. So tell me, Pamela, when did you know that you wanted to become an entrepreneur?
When I was 13 years old, I'm a Navy brat. So
Okay.
we traveled, and primarily we were lucky. Most of our time was in Newport, Rhode Island, but we spent 3 years in Waterloo, Iowa. And everyone asks that there's no water in there. Why are you there with the Navy? And my father ran a reserve center. So
Okay.
I got to, in the summer, I worked on a farm. I helped raise corn, cows, pigs, and, I even skinned some rabbits, but I was able to separate it because the rabbits, I had my pet rabbits, and then I had the ones where I was focusing, this is what they're for. But we had, Iowa's cold, so you have snow that is, will cover your door. And we had a garage, and I love to play ping pong, and we had a ping pong table in the garage. And my mom would put a heater, a little portable heater out there. So I would invite friends over, but I would charge them to play on my ping pong table. So they could play for an hour for $1. And if they gave me an extra quarter, I would play a song and sing for them on the guitar. So I did that for a while. And I was, for that age, I was making some good money because everyone wanted to be in the warmth. So my mom came out one day and she said, you're going to need to pay me some money. And I said, why? And she said, because I'm supplying the heat and the electricity. And so that's where I learned about P&L. So what she would do is I would pay her a little bit of the things, and she would actually put it in a secret little savings thing for me. But that's where I started learning about, now I need to maybe raise my rate a little bit because I know that I'm paying her, 50 cents or whatever it was to pay for the heat. So that's when I knew that I really wanted to have a business, and at an early age.
That's an amazing story, and thank you for sharing that. I think the only thing you were missing is the food and the drinks, and you had yourself.
I would sneak those out. So that would be a bonus for people that came regularly.
The VIP treatment there.
Yes.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about, and tell us, I should say, about, COVID, and what changes have you made, to your business strategy over the past 2 years that are, not COVID related. We've all, made sort of adapted different things based on the pandemic, but what have you done? What has worked? What is not working? And what is your recommendations for the audience?
Okay. So a lot of people moved to a remote model, because of COVID.
Yeah.
I moved to a remote model before COVID, like actually a few months before, because we had a big office space, but clients never came to my office. Never. They preferred that I, went to their office. And I actually like that too, because a lot of times I would interact with some of their employees. It helped establish those relationships that I needed. And I spoke to my clients. They said, we don't care where you work, just continue to do what you're doing. And I also interviewed other colleagues that had even larger companies than mine, and they work from home. And they said, as long as they know me, so they're like, it would work for me because I'm super disciplined. I think that's my Navy, military background. But so I did that beforehand. And my team is, they work remotely, and it's worked out. So, I had one guy say, if it doesn't work out, we can always get an office space. And I said, no, you just won't be with the company anymore, because I actually like it, but not everybody can do that. But scaling back on some of the things that were unnecessary, that gives you more revenue to be able to do other things, like put it into your marketing or put it into infrastructure. And then some of the other things were actually sitting back and, I talk the talk, but I wasn't always walking the walk with what I tell my clients as far as being strategic and, having a plan. So we're the worst. We're finishing up our own website, which is we're like the shoemaker with the worn shoes. So we'll do great. Yeah, we do these great work. And I had a client that said, you need to get your website done because the work that you're doing is awesome. And, when I take on a client, I'll send them a PDF of all the links that I have of the websites that we've done. So I've really started creating, a plan for us, and also scaling back on some of our services, because we were saying we were doing a lot, and we were, but I scaled back on the things that I didn't have a passion for. So one of them is social media. I now partner with a couple other firms if they want social media, but because it's changed so much, it's really, for us, it was just unrewarding because we don't have the control over it that we used to have.
Yeah.
And you'd have a client that, after a month, they'd wonder why they weren't getting 100 leads, but they weren't doing anything paid. And we used to be able to do a lot organically. That's changed. So anything that we weren't like just got up and I didn't want to do anything that meant put a pit in the, my stomach. That just didn't make me feel good. So just really, and then an operations manual, putting processes together in writing, were some of the things we did, just taking that outward look into to our own company.
We went through a similar journey with the pandemic. It's give us the opportunity to do exactly that. Take a look at processes, optimize our processes, optimize our skill sets in terms of areas where we felt that we needed to have, a deeper understanding. Like your industry, our industry in cyber is ever changing and evolves extremely fast, or quickly, I should say. But, like you, we also, looked at areas where, hey, does it make sense for us to do this? Or does it make sense for us to carry these types of costs and overhead, et cetera?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's enabled us. And like you, we were also working. I've worked for 20 something years remotely. I tell people, and manage networks throughout the world, from even sitting in aircrafts crossing the Atlantic. So it was nothing new, but yet it was a bit different.
Right.
And different times. And I think that one of the things that I've at least noticed, and speaking to a lot of business owners, is that, now people are beginning to, like yourself, say, hey, why are we carrying this overhead of this big office where
Mm-hmm.
people can work remotely and actually are putting out a lot more productivity wise.
Right.
It's healthier on them. They can take breaks when they want. They're really, they feel
Mm-hmm.
more committed to the cause. So kudos to you.
Yeah, and and if you don't have employees that or however you work, whether it's independent contractors, employees that you can trust to do the work, then you shouldn't have them anyway. If you don't want to be a babysitter, I tell people, if I have to babysit you, I want to be able to claim you on my on my taxes as a dependent. So it's like the trust, and that was actually tough for me too initially, to let go and say, you know what, we don't have to have the 8:30 to 5:30 working hours. We can, you as long as you get the work done, you meet the deadlines, giving them, because I've tried to do that, the life work balance instead of work life balance.
Yeah.
Giving them that opportunity too. I've found that we are much more productive and happier. And then we'll still meet. Even during COVID, we would meet regularly out in a park at a picnic bench, where we're far apart, but we still had that camaraderie. So it's different personalities. It's just, you have to learn to let go. And if the person isn't productive, then it's just not the right person for your team.
That is true. The IRS might have a different take on
Yes.
claiming people as your children, but
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what are, in your opinion, what is one of the most important things we should do to keep our companies running smoothly? What
I alluded to a little earlier, having like the processes. So I did a talk recently for the National Association of Women Business Owners. Actually, it was a virtual talk during, COVID. And it's all about writing down everything that you do every single day. So we do certain tasks. So whether it's a website, where before we set up a website, there are things that we do during the website. There are things that are repetitive that you do for each website, especially in the background for security or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Write it down. So, or have whoever's doing that, write it down. and then have a couple of people look at it and make sure they understand it and they could do it, so and do it for every single thing. And sometimes it's tough to take that time out, but as you're doing it, if they're doing a task, write down what they're doing and then put it into a manual, standard operating procedures. And so if someone leaves or on vacation or runs off to Paris or whatever it is, someone else can come in and look at it and do the job, because the whole thing is it's about consistency and efficiency. And if you have to reinvent the wheel each time because you forget one little step or something falls between the cracks, having that is just so important. And it's really helped me if I'm training someone else, or if I have to, if I do a task that I don't do every day, I refer to it. So it's kind of like McDonald's, if you look at their story, everything was about consistency, doing it at the same time, even though you're going to customize in other areas, whether it's design or whatever for the client. But there's certain things that you do every day, just check it off and put, and it just helps so much. And it just, and let it evolve. If something changes, make sure you remember to go and update it. And if you have more than one person on your team, get the buy-in from all of them and have them, everybody look at it and make sure that if they had to go perform that task, that they clearly understand it. Because you can have, I know in your industry, sometimes it's tough for people to understand some of, the layman's term, all of that, but making sure someone can go in and understand it in their language is really important.
So you said a couple of things there that I think is very key nuggets. First of all, having a repeatable process. Mm-hmm. And if we think back on, let's just use sports as an analogy here. I mean, some of the best athletes that are out there, LeBron Jameses, mm-hmm. and the and Drew Bledsoes and all the rest of them, they go to practice every day. They're good at what they do. But why? Because it's a repeatable process. Yes. It becomes muscle memory. And this way, they know what to do at any right. point in time. The other thing is, one of the things you mentioned there as well, and why documentation is particularly important. And we love documentation in our industry. It's one of the things that we really strive and pride ourselves on is, like you said, when somebody is out, someone else can step in. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of what is called just-in-time documentation, meaning that as we are going through processes, we train our staff to document as the process is taking place rather than going through an entire process and then coming back right. and trying to document, because you're killing two birds with one stone. Right. And at the end, you just have to review and update where needed. Right.
And sometimes you miss things when you do it at the end. So just have them keep, whether they're typing it in or if some prefer to write it and put it in later, as they do it, write down even the smallest step, because sometimes the smallest step can just really mess you up if you miss that step. So every single step, and then have someone else do it after it's finished to make sure that there's, and then go back to that person if there are questions to fill, like you said, fill in the gaps to, make it work.
And one of the best ways that I found to actually test that, like you said, having somebody look at it. But one of the things that I found has been extremely valuable is taking someone from a complete different department and having them work in a different position for a day or a week and have them work with these tools and these documents to see if they're able to actually go through it, because you learn so much where, like you say, sometimes we have blinders. We can't see left or right, but they can come in and say, hey, you know what, if we change this here, would make it so much better. And, you'll improve your efficiency.
Right. And they're objective. And what happens is that also, especially for small companies. So we're a small company. So if someone's out, we don't want to make that person who's out stress out that they're going to have this pile of work to come back to, because that's almost just as stressful to go on vacation and know you have all this. So at least some of it, the ship is still moving forward. But then you're cross-training people. So, that cross-training can also lead to elevating that other person or finding out they have these skills that you didn't realize they have. And like you said, that objective point of view, when they're looking at it, that's what helps so much, is by having these other people look at it, especially someone that's never touched it before.
Nice, 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 nice. So I want to go back to Waterloo here for a second because you mentioned being in Waterloo, Iowa, and actually when you mentioned that I was like, there's no water in Iowa. But you apparently from what you shared with me, you have a love for snakes.
Yes,
So
yes.
tell us about that. Share it with us.
So in Iowa, we lived in, I think there was like maybe 23 houses. There was an Air Force base, an old Air Force base behind us, and there were railroad tracks. And I've always loved, any kind of animals, but I love reptiles. And so I would catch snakes, big snakes, and I didn't even know if they were poisonous or not. I was just a tomboy. I mean, my dad didn't have any. We have three girls. I'm the oldest, and after three girls, he said no more and became a Boy Scout leader, and then taught me all his, everything that he knows. I can changing the oil, doing all that stuff. But then luckily my mother taught me some of the other stuff. So it balanced me out. But I would go hunting with him. I would do, everything. But I had two snakes, Charlie and Ralph. And I raised them in my bedroom closet. And I would go out and I would catch the mice too and bring them in to feed them. So I had them there for a couple of years. And I came home from school one day and my mom was beating Charlie over the head with the frying pan. He got out into the living room and I couldn't say anything because I had all kinds of things in my closet, animals that I had to sacrifice Charlie for all of the others. So,
Oh, so she never knew that Charlie was living in the closet.
no,
Oh, wow.
after I couldn't get grounded anymore, but I told her. But yeah, so when my husband and I got married, we would go to the pet shows and just we're both animal lovers, and I would always go to the reptile section. And so after 5 years, he goes, I guess you really do love snakes. I would hold the big snakes around my shoulders. And so he's like, oh, you can get this one. There was a snake the size of my pinky, the little corn snake. And so he's like, you can have that. And then of course it grew up to be a big snake, but I had him for 17 years. And he would sit around my neck and literally when we watched the mouse go by on the computer, he didn't like my husband so much. And I think it's because my husband was afraid of him. Most people were afraid of him, but he was I love snakes. So if we ever see one in the backyard, I go and we don't want anything to hurt the dog. So I'll go out and I'll try to grab it. And my husband, Chris, is like, we don't just know. It's like, so he goes, I'll get it. He goes, I won't kill it. I promise. But no. But so, yes, I love snakes.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. And tell me a little bit about, Athena PowerLink, the organization that helps propel women-owned second stage businesses. Maybe you can share with our audience, because one of the things that I've discovered, is that there are a lot of people like yourself and others who are involved in these amazing organizations, but unfortunately, not a lot of people know about these organizations. So tell us a little bit about Athena PowerLink.
So Athena PowerLink, I've been on there, I think now it's almost 11 years. They asked me to join when I was the president of the National Association of Women Business Owners to represent that organization. And what they do is Athena itself is a large organization where there are different facets. There's Athena PowerLink, there's Athena Next Gen, which developed while I was on the board, where it focuses on young professional women, and then just general Athena National. But Athena PowerLink supports the growth of second stage women-owned businesses. So to be on the board is such an honor, because I'm working with other women in large companies who they actually pay to be on the board to support the growth of these women. So to be what we call it as a client of Athena is they don't pay anything. They pay like an application fee, but they have to go through testing. They fill out an application, and then we review the application with the entire board. And if we feel based on the application that they meet some of the criteria, which is they have to have at least 2 employees, including themselves. They have to have $500,000 or more in revenue, and they have to be 51% or more women owned. So if they've passed, they've answered those questions, the next step is 2 or 3 of the board members will go to their place of business and do what we call as a site visit. And that is to really make sure they're in business, to make sure they have a passion, to make sure that they are leading the organization, then it's not their husband and they're just trying to
Right,
say
right.
they're doing, because we do come across that, but we really, we're there to support the true women-owned businesses, and to make sure that they're coachable, because there are a lot of people that they want this, free help, and the guidance, but they just keep pushing back. And we have what we do is once they're approved to be a client, they will be assigned a panel, which is from other community, consists of other community leaders, which will always cover, the CPA, HR, an attorney, marketing, and then whatever other people need to fit in. So a lot of times it could be another business that's been in their, understands their industry. And then we always have a past Athena graduate. And then so if they pass that, then they come and they sit before the board. So it's like a Shark Tank almost, where they're at the end of this big table and you've got 12 or 13 of us that are for an hour. We're just asking them questions because we really want to make sure before we have all these people volunteer their time that they meet all that criteria, and that they, and that they also have the revenue to be able to carry out any of the advice that we give them. So for instance, if they say you really need a new website because it's not, doing what it should be doing, they need to have the money to be able to invest in that. And they don't pay us. So if I'm on that panel, they can't use my services. We had one instance where the woman did, and I had to step down. She said, I really want to. And we're not there to actually do the work. We're there to advise based on all of our collaborative experience. So it's a wonderful organization. It's one of the it's not everyone knows about it. So so thank you for asking about that, because we've really helped. We have women that have gone from 500,000 in a year to 1 million or more because of, everything that we've talked about earlier, getting structured and getting all your ducks in a row. We help with that. And so when you have some really good women that some of them are just like, they do their homework and then they're so hungry for more, those are the best. And then of course some just they're too scattered or whatever, but we've gotten really good in our vetting process, to that's why we go through so many steps before we agree to have them come on board.
That's amazing to know that there's such an organization there who are supporting women in their second stage businesses.
Mhm.
And that's a resource for women-owned business owners, I should say, to be able to take advantage of, and actually maybe take advantage is not the right word, but to reap the benefits. Of the wisdom of the others, of your board members. It's almost like you said it correctly, it's a Shark Tank, but at the same time, it's almost like a virtual board.
Yes.
Of these subject matter experts that are coming from many different areas, each bringing
Mhm.
their expertise to help guide that woman, leader, to ensure that her business becomes successful.
Exactly. And we invest a lot of time in them. So the entire panel meets on a monthly basis, but then you'll have the offshoot meetings with, say, they might meet with the CPA to get things, or the attorney. A lot of times they have contracts that really need to be adjusted because it's not good. A lot of women get to where they are because because they had a good product or service and they didn't really have a plan, or they've gotten to that part, and they just need help. Okay, now what? Whether it's infrastructure, a lot of it we have is, you'll have a family-owned business that they need help with. So just sometimes it's, there's so many different scenarios, or it's just their employees where that's not their strength, and they need to clean house a little bit because so it's giving them the strength and the confidence, and it's a year process. So they go through it for a year, and once they finish, we call it like the sorority, because everybody stays connected and continues to help each other, because that usually the last month is when they're like, oh no, what am I going to do without it's, but they've usually grown to the point they can stand on their own 2 feet. And we had one that described it as her business was like a big bowl of spaghetti, before she started, and now it's all organized, and she's actually growing even quicker because she has a clearer mind and a clearer vision of where she wants to go.
And that's all incredible. Thank you very, very much for sharing that. And I will tell you this, this is my second business. I've actually, my cybersecurity firm is my second business. My first firm, my wife and I had, was a telecommunications company that we sold. Why I bring that up is as follows: is a entity such as Athena PowerLink and the services, the advisory services and guidance that you provide to women-owned businesses is extremely important for bringing, for example, all these different aspects together at the same time. I know when, we went through the vetting process, when we had a parties who were interested in buying our company, there were a lot of things that we had to scramble at that time to sort of put in place where, had they been in place before, the value of the company probably would have been much higher. Right. And a lot of people don't, unfortunately, I would say, take that into account. So it's nice to see that is there. It's great to see that you guys are putting in the time and that you have this so well structured, and that you go through this vetting process. And more so is that camaraderie that exists after the fact. And I'll be willing to bet that it probably becomes somewhat of an economic circle as well, because people are, Athena PowerLink members probably support each other.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Awesome. So let's switch back to Rogan real quick and tell me, there are a lot of marketing communication agencies out there. There's a lot of different things out there in every aspect nowadays. I mean, I think you can pretty much, go to the gas station, buy a doctor, but anyhow. But why, and not comparing your organization with
it's
that,
like
but
on the corner when you see you can have bankruptcy, you can get a divorce, you can get all these things, all those little signs grouped up in the corner, and you can sell your house for cash.
what before the light changes.
Yes.
So tell me, Pamela, why should we hire your company to build a website when there are so many do-it-yourself options and so many others out there?
So when we first started building websites, it was let's say AOL, we were building it up on dial-up.
You've got mail.
You've got. When I lived in New York, so I lived in New York for 20 years, and I had a very similar business, but that was more of a true like advertising agency where we did like packaging, we did a whole bunch of stuff, but we started doing websites. And so I learned a lot about the, kind of like the nitty gritty of it. And that was, it was a lot more difficult back then to do it than how it is now. There's more tools and just more knowledge. But when I have a client that comes to me and says that they have, and I'm not going to name the companies, do it yourselves, but because for some, that's what they need. That's what they do. But some of the drag and drop resources that are out there, they don't realize that they're going to be paying a subscription every month to have it hosted, but it's not in the typical form of hosting, like where we put our files that we own onto a hosting platform. They own whatever you've created. Mm-hmm. And, you're provided with some template options, and yes, you can move some things around, but a lot of them, it's going to look like everybody else's. So you won't have that differentiation or that true branding. And you're also on their shared server. So if you're trying to do SEO, search engine optimization, it's kind of all blending in. So you don't really get that true picture, especially if you ever wanted to go and build your site somewhere else. So with us, we take it like the discovery process that I talked about earlier is even for a website, we'll put them through this. They'll answer, like 10 to 15 questions about their business and where they want to go. And it really helps us to come back and build what we call a site map. that's, the layout and, the org structure for your website, which some people don't do in advance. They just go on and say, oh, I'll put this here and I'll put that there, where we're really methodical about how we lay it out and where things go. So it's following a path. So when your customers or clients go to your site, they know exactly what you want them to do, and it's easy to navigate. So we also in the back end will build, all of the meta tags and everything that you need to have that search engine optimization, where you don't have to go. People think you always have to go to Google and pay, and Google AdWords, there's nothing wrong with it. You can be very successful there, but for a smaller business, we can build in that organic back end structure, and so that so Google can start indexing them and finding it. And then the front end, we always customize to look just like the customer or client's business and what, for whatever industry they're in. So they represent well, because now that's your online brochure.
Yeah.
Some people still have, printed brochures, but it's like back in the day, they're like, what's your sign? It's like, now what's your website address? So it's just really making it look like them and feel like them. And then for smaller businesses, we'll train you how to manage it yourself, so you can make changes to it. We don't put it in there. And, I have met some web masters that will code it so that you can't make any changes and you're held hostage. We don't like that. We've rescued a lot of hostage situations. That's what I call them, where they can't, where the client's trapped and has to pay a lot of money per hour to make a small change. So we don't want to do that. And many times what happens is they start becoming so successful because their website's working for them. They just have us manage it. And it's not that much money. It's actually more money for them to take time to do it than to focus on their core business.
Yes.
So we really want to differentiate them, and every client has a different website. It's unique to them, and we always allow for growth. And you can come to us and say, we can grow with you. So when you grow, we grow, as far as our relationship. And we have really good relationships with all of our clients. It's really open communication, and we can, they're always right, meaning they have the final word, but we'll never yes you to death. That's, it's not, I'd rather not get the business than to do a disservice by telling them that something can be done or can't be done, or that it'll work when it won't, just to get the business. So we spend that upfront time before we even go to start coding or anything, to really find out your needs, and there are other things that can complement it, whether it's down the road, like a newsletter that goes out, but making the newsletter really newsworthy and fun, and not salesy. You want to try, I encourage them to stay away from, a really salesy newsletter. Same thing with anything else that you're doing, where you're just trying to create brand awareness and also show that you're an expert at what you're saying you're doing. So that's really important. So I think the relationship and the strategy up front, so that you have that mapped out plan, is what helps differentiate us.
And I see great value in that. We take similar approaches when we go in to do security assessments, or we're meeting with a customer. We go through a similar strategy session to know what they're facing, and not only that, but what are their plans 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, because we want to help them align their technology and their business together, business goals. And I can see where that plays out to your favor, and where definitely your customers would be extremely happy. I can't tell you the amount of business owners that I've come across who are just not happy with their website, or they've been burned by a web developer, or the site did not come out the way it was supposed to. The vast majority of them out there don't even have, an SSL certificate on their website.
Right.
So they're not being picked up by Google and others. And then
Right.
they're wondering, for example, why is the website not generating business for
Right.
me? And, like you said, there are some of them that are hostage unfortunately, by web developers. So I'll definitely be sending some folks your way, because I like the approach that you take with the strategy session, and coming up with the map and layout of everything ahead of time, and taking all the aspects into account.
Yeah, we don't like them to have surprises, and a lot of times people won't even endeavor to do a new website because they just think it's so much work on their part. We make it, if for example, if they have an existing website, we'll take all the content off of their website and put it into a Word document, and then which allows them, because you don't have to reinvent all of the content.
Right.
Once we choose the sitemap and we have, this is the home page, this is the about page, or whatever we're doing, put that content in there, and then they can go in and just edit, subtract, add in those sections versus, doing the entire thing over, because that can be, they're trying to run their business. So we're super organized, and we have a lot of clients that just aren't organized. So it helps us, helps them that we are. And then just try to make the process really smooth and just, keep them in the loop every step of the way versus, okay, we'll start your website and we'll show you when it's finished. We don't do that. We want to make sure that you like the overall look before we go into the other pages. And we don't ever want surprise costs, or, if they want to add something else in, we can do that, based on the upfront budget that we talked about. But like you said, to be able to evolve, think of years ahead of time, we'll create it so that if this is something on their wish list, we'll make it so it's not that difficult to add later on.
So to my audience out there, I will say the following. You heard Pamela say that, it's not a one size fits all. It's not a cookie cutter. She works with your budget and your plans, not the other way around. She comes up, she does a strategy session, they build a sitemap, and they make the website work for you. So for those of you out there, if you have a website today and it has not generated a lead for you, a positive lead in the last 6 to 9 months, you need to pick up your phone and call Pamela or get in touch with her and let her do an assessment of your website and sit with you to come up with a strategy that will start working for you. And I'm going to make sure at the end of this episode, we'll have all her contact details available. So, Pamela. So I got a question for you here. A couple more questions. What are the three most essential nuggets you can pass on to others when it comes to, and you've passed on a lot already, but in terms of, brand awareness and branding, I should say, and their websites and business marketing in general?
I think the three most are listen. I think that is, I'm definitely not shy. When you're starting out, you want to talk, you're excited, you want to get to know potential clients or even colleagues. Just try to take a step back and listen, because I've found out some of the most important aspects of what is needed to be able to serve, my clients by listening, because their pain points for whatever they need or what they're looking for will come out. So, ask them a question and let them talk, but just let them, just be open to listening. And that's in anything that you do, except, my husband, I listen to everything, and he'll listen to a little bit, but it works out. But when it comes to others, people do like to talk and share information about themselves. So listen without chiming in every other word. Let them get it out. And I think that the thing that's really worked for me is mapping out my day. So when I'm ready to close down, I make sure my desk, everything is organized, and I create a task list for myself for the next day. So there's a lot of programs out there that you can use, and we do use them, but I also have that physical, it's in a Word document, and in priority order, I'll put the client and I'll put the tasks that need to be done. And I print it out and I put it next to my computer. And I'm so competitive with myself that I like to make sure that I check something, get things checked off. So I take a pen and I check it off when I'm finished with it. And if it's, there's some things that may roll over to the next day, but that's where putting them in priority is really important, so that you make sure if there's something due and you made a promise, make sure that you complete it. And I think the third one is take care of yourself. So that's something a lot of us we neglect. You're just working. I used to, say if I could just be fed intravenously and have a catheter, I would just be sitting at my computer all day long. And so it's getting up. I have, this is my bitch, which was my Fitbit on my arm, that, you getting your steps in, getting, just having some movement, getting away from your computer, and trying to eat a little healthier. You don't have to go after a fad diet, just watching what you eat and portion control and all of that, because when you feel healthier and you actually are much more productive. So, taking care of yourself, and just try to have some quality time. So I go back to that life work balance. I've changed my routine where I was working 7 days a week, sneaking into my office when my husband would think I was somewhere, doing whatever, and I would sneak in and try to get some work done. So now I try to make it so Saturday and Sunday are my days. I'm still doing stuff around the house, but I'm not doing work related stuff. So what happens is I actually come back on Monday with a clearer head, and then I look forward to Fridays in a good way.
Yeah.
And then just spending time with family. I don't have any two-legged kids. I have four-legged kids, but my husband and I have been together for 30 years, and he's like, I still want to hang out with you. I love you. So I'm tired of having dinner with your picture. So, so I changed that routine, and I still feel guilty sometimes,
Mhm.
doing it, but that is lessening so much more, because I actually am a better person, and I think a lot more productive, and creative, because when you're doing other things, you have you're freer to think.
Yeah, that is true. That is so true. And thank you for sharing
Mhm.
that with us. And so if there was one thing that you could change on your journey up until now, what is it and why would you change it?
I think it goes back to the work-life balance, is having, um, taking more time, taking more vacations, and they don't have to be long, expensive vacations, a long weekend, just, and then kind of mapping things out along with that, because that, if you map things out, make sure you include that quality time to take for yourself. So, they always say you're not going to, be in your, at your grave or whatever, and saying you wish you did more work. So it's, just, I think by doing that, it'll just and affect your entire business, when you can kind of take that time to reflect, and just, whatever it is, whether you meditate or whatever it is you do to take that step back, but then just be your best during your working hours. So it's, but that's my biggest thing that I probably would have changed. I haven't taken a vacation since 2016,
Wow.
and then we were planning on going on a short cruise, and then, we had COVID. So on my birthday, August 27th, we're leaving for a 3-night cruise, and they said that it's going out. So, send out positive thoughts that that is
Sending all the
going to happen.
positive thoughts for you, and you're hearing it from a true workaholic, folks. So let's give her all the positive thoughts that on
Yes.
August she can go on her 3-day cruise.
Yes.
Awesome, Pamela. So we're rounding, we're getting near the top. I have about 3 more questions here for you. So real quickly, if 2 books that you've read along the way that influence your journey, and a nugget from each.
Okay. Carrie Coates, who was our leader, one of our leaders for Athena PowerLink, and she's now started her own business. She was with the Krumer Entrepreneurial Center, like the director, and, just an awesome woman. She recommended the Confidence Code, and that talks about the science, this, like, kind of like the science and art of self assurance for women. So it's, and because not all women, it goes back to, it's just kind of in our nature sometimes, that just to kind of step back. So it's not anything about bashing men, or it's all
Yeah.
positive, and men can read it too. So it's, and I think, the E-Myth Revisited, a lot of people have read that, by Michael Gerber. So that kind of gives you great advice through, like, the lifespan of your business. When we first moved to Florida, I used to travel sometimes to Atlanta and I like listening to the little, the audio,
Mhm.
and that was, pretty good. And then, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. So all of those books, once you get into it, you kind of get addicted to it, because you always find something in there that, even if you found one solid thing out of it to that you can use in your everyday life. And I used to get so excited when I like listened to it, but then I didn't always follow through. So I make sure I write it down what I want to do from that piece of advice that meant something, and then share it with others. Get others. Give it, if you finish, give it to somebody else to read or listen to. I think that's also a good gift.
That's a great way to pay it forward. That's a
Yes.
great way. So I have, speaking of paying it forward, and you've kind of given me the right segue here, because I want to speak real quickly and give you the opportunity to speak about something that's very dear and to your heart. I know from your, from what you shared with me, you volunteer a lot with a lot of different organizations to really, help women leaders and help others and young, business people to really move forward. So, what have you found as one of the benefits of giving back to your community when you're volunteering for an organization and association?
When I first started doing it, I just felt so good all the time that I volunteered for tons of them. And then, as sometimes you get stretched too thin. But the biggest piece of advice in regard to that is, when you find an organization that you're passionate about, see if there's a way that you can, if there's a committee or something where you can get to know other people that you wouldn't normally rub elbows with. So I've had the privilege of getting to know some, whether it's high profile leaders or other, people in my industry or whoever it is that when you're sitting there and you're working on a committee with them, it really, really allows you to not only get to know them, but show them what you can do. So if there's a way that you can volunteer that shows off your, what you can do, it really, it allows them to see that you're not just what I call a butt in the seat. It's showing that if you say you're going to do it, do it. Don't make a promise that you can't keep, because they'll remember it, and then that's going to reflect on your business.
Yeah.
I belong, the National Association of Women Business Owners. I do a lot of things to support women, but I served on the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for 3 years. So I got to learn about, really get involved with diversity. But I think it's really important for your business and for yourself, because you're giving back, and it allows you to get to know others that you wouldn't normally get to know.
And amen to that, and that is so true, and giving back is extremely important in anything that we do. And your resume alone, I mean, when I was reading through here preparing for our show, and that's why I asked you at the top of the hour, and I said, how do you do what you do? But let me say this: thank you for all that you do. Okay,
Aw.
because thank you. So I have here's my parting question, and it's one that I usually ask all my guests, and it goes along the lines as follows: if you could assemble a dream board of advisors of 3 influential people, either dead or alive, who would they be? Why would you choose them, and how would they help influence your journey?
I think one of them would be Barbara Corcoran. I have very strong, that's another life I had, but a very strong real estate background. My advertising company when I was in New York City she hired us to do a lot of her graphics, and she was so very strong, which was great, but not strong in an offensive way. She was very open. She was very direct, and very nurturing for everyone, not just women. So that is one. John DiArmas, I don't know if he's the current, I served with him for 3 years on the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Board, and he's now the current chair. We've remained really good friends, and he just always has sound advice and inspires me. We've had, great conversations where I can be open, and sometimes when you're so close to something in your own business, you kind of lose sight, and someone that's been there, done that, can kind of come in and like open the doors for you. Like just go, it's like that aha moment. So I do a lot of mentoring for young women and men, and sometimes they're struggling, and you want them to struggle a little. You want them to be able to think on their feet, but sometimes you can just really help them through that. and then and so they're not really all famous people, but they're just people that have, just really I've worked with directly. So Carol Ann Dykes and Esther Vargas, I think you know them. So they're site managers at the UCF Business Incubator. And I know Esther she moved to New York for, I guess it was like 5 years, but we always kept in touch, and she's back now running one of the other incubators. And so both of them were always really good advisors, so that I knew them before I went into the incubator. They knew me when I was the president of NABO, and I felt comfortable just asking them, anything, because sometimes I would be struggling with something that I'm like, I know that there's an answer, but or I'll have the answer and you feel a little insecure that you don't necessarily have the right answer. So that was a way to kind of bounce things off. And then I guess Eminem.
There you go.
I like to rap, so I think I'll do it without the dirty words. But people know me. A lot of people know me for my rapping. So, yo, SEO, what you do for me? Make it so my website is out there to see. Google ranked as they be clutch. Got to get to page 1. Get out my face page 2. Your time here is done. Optimizing your titles, make your Googlebot sing. While we change up your content, make it shine like bling. RMC, way to be. Make your website pop. We're gonna take your shabby rankings, bring it to the top. Drop the mic.
Oh, mic drop.
I have some clients some organizations that I write an annual rap for them or whatever. So that's one of my my name is Piro. So is my
Well, let me tell you this. First of all, you surprised me with that, and I'm a big Eminem fan, so we're on there. I will tell you that. Let me see which one it was. Carol Ann Dykes high five this hand.
Yes.
This hand here, Barbara Corcoran high five.
Yes.
Because I was actually at a conference one year. It was back in 2017, where she was a guest speaker, and she came down the hallway where I was standing, and we high fived each other. What an amazing story that lady has on her entire journey. In real estate and working her way, taking over the company from her husband, who was we won't call any names, right. but yeah, she's made a name for herself, and yeah, one of my favorite sharks.
Yep.
So
and now she's helping others, so she's paying it forward.
Paying it forward. That's the name of the game. Pamela, you know what? I need to thank you for paying it forward, because this has been an amazing hour with you here. I really enjoy your story. And thank you for sharing it with us. And thank you for the rap. And and like I said to my audience out there, if you have a website out there, folks, for the last 6 or 9 months that has not gotten you a credible lead, you need to give Pamela a call. Her contact details will be below here. Please reach out to her and let her and her team work for you in terms, and be part of your team to put, help take you to the next level, and really, bring your online presence and your branding presence. Pamela, thank you for everything. Thank you for what you do for Athena PowerLink. Thank you for what you do for the women out there in our community. Thank you for all your volunteering. Appreciate you, and God bless you. And where can we find some more like you?
I'm trying to teach my dogs how to type, but they haven't mastered that skill yet.
Let me know when you get successful on that. I got 3 of them here that I could put to work. But thank you very much, Pamela.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for all that you do. And your team is so organized. This process was, I'm so busy, but you didn't add more burden to my workload, which was awesome.
Well, I can't take credit for that. I will pass it on to my wonderful team, and thank you very much. Stay safe, and we'll be in touch soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Roy Richardson, host of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Are you a business owner or a leader of a successful business? If yes, we'd love to have you as a guest on our podcast. Our goal is simple. We provide a platform for leaders to share their experiences to benefit others. We want to hear your story, how you got started, the challenges you faced along the way, and your passion today. If this sounds like you, or if you know someone who fits the criteria, then be sure to visit our website at dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. That's dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. Also, Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell to be notified when our next podcast video is live. Or, if you'd rather listen to us during your car ride, you can also follow us on your favorite audio channel using the corresponding links below. Thanks, and once again, keep crushing it.